Welcome to the studio, Russ. How you doing today?
I'm good.
Boom.
I'm good. All right. So you're saying that I'm following fusion reactors? Is
You're
that the?
following fusion reactors, and immediately before that, we were talking about fine watches made in Switzerland,
So we got a little bit of everything today.
taking us on a whirlwind tour.
I don't know if I can follow fusion reactors, you guys. I'll try my best.
Well, we're excited to talk about voice AI.
Yeah.
But why don't you introduce yourself and the company, and then we can talk about the news and go from there.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Russ. I'm the CEO, co-founder of a company called LiveKit. LiveKit.
Yeah.
So LiveKit, what we started actually as an open source project. So back during the pandemic, if you think about all the technology that Zoom has underneath, we started an open source project that kind of built something similar to all the technology that underpins Zoom, but as an API for any developer to integrate similar type of technology into their app. So you could connect any two people or any number of people on the planet kind of instantly with less than 100 milliseconds of latency over video and voice. Um, Fast forward like about a year and a half, 2 years, and we built a demo when ChatGPT first came out, where you could talk to it instead of text with it using LiveKit's infrastructure. And a few months later, OpenAI ended up finding it, wanted to build a voice interface to ChatGPT, and we started to work pretty closely with them on voice mode and then advanced voice mode after that. And kind of almost by accident, I guess, we got pulled into this AI space. Voice AI, it was not a space back then.
Yeah.
I
Happy
remember,
accident.
yeah, I remember our Series A, which we closed at we closed the first tranche at the end of 2023, 2020, just at the start of 24. And everybody was just telling me that, hey, this is cool, but voice isn't going to be a thing for 3 to 5 years. And then, of course, GPT 4.0 happened, and
Yep.
now
Can you
it's a
Yeah.
space.
can you steelman at all why speech to text is still bad on my iPhone? I just really want it to be good. Is
John's
there a
John's a
world?
big voice guy. He's
I
always
love-
he's always using LiveKit unknowingly.
I
talking
worked
with,
at I worked
with
at a voice
ChatGPT.
AI company in 2010 or something.
Oh, really?
Called Twilio. Yeah, it was Dragon Naturally Speaking.
I do. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Dragon eventually acquired this company, and it was direct competitor to Siri. Apple bought Siri, and Vlingo was purchased by Dragon, and
That's
their
the most
primary. It was such a
Silicon
funny startup
Valley, the
name.
I think
TV
I remember
show name.
Blingo,
Yeah,
actually.
Vlingo. It was a good company. I think it was a good exit for everyone involved too.
Yeah.
And their primary target was BlackBerry. And their whole goal was let's get pre-installed as BlackBerry. But there was a lot of chaos in the market at the time with it was a $20 app. Then they had to cut their pricing, do an ad model, all these different things going on. I'd love to know, like, just if you were in charge of Apple, how would you improve speech to text?
Speech to text specifically, like transcribing text.
Oh well, anything in voice agents or
Yeah.
just improving the customer experience broadly, like
Yeah,
surprise
yeah.
and delight, right?
Well, it's one of those things that I think is funny. Like people talk about hallucinations as this bad thing.
Yep.
But in a lot of ways, for like kind of this speech to speech interaction model where you're talking to an AI,
Yeah.
hallucination is a feature. So if you remember like your Alexa or Siri, like when you were talking about this, 2010, 2012,
Yeah.
you go and you ask it a question and it's just going through a bunch of like a decision tree. And
Yep.
if it hits, a dead end and it can't answer the question, it
Yep.
just doesn't do anything, or it says, I can't answer the question. And so the second that it can't do something you expect it to do, all of a sudden it's such a punishing user experience. You just don't want to use the thing anymore and you stop using the thing. But with kind of these new models that actually, hallucinate answers into existence, even if it doesn't know the answer, it tries. You always get a response that comes back from the model.
Yeah.
And for like voice interfaces, that actually can be more of a feature than a bug. It also helps that these models.
Yeah, it's
just
funny
know it.
because it's
Yeah.
human, right? So like
Yeah.
if you're having a conversation, John asks me a question, I don't know the answer. I go, well, like, is it like this thing? And you're
Yeah.
like, no, it's this thing. And like, but for some reason with like these older generation of models, it was like very annoying to like
Totally.
go down that wrong sort of like,
Exactly. And
path.
it's always the same answer, right? It's like, I don't know, or I can't help you with that. I can't help you with that. Or I'll search Google for you or whatever. And so I think that like just having these LLMs that have ingested the entire internet and can always generate some plausible answer for everything, whether it's 100% correct or not. I think that just makes the user experience so much better with these kind of modern or contemporary voice agents that you interact with.
Yeah.
So, I think the other thing I'll say related to the Apple stuff and that's improving very quickly is a latency. So like we have a lot of providers out there now, Grok, Cerebras, folks like that who can run inference much faster than even a year ago for some of the model providers.
Yeah.
And now like LLM inference can actually be done in less time than generating speech with TTS. And so I think like getting that latency end to end down, to 300 milliseconds or 500 milliseconds on average for like turn latency, that kind of helps you cross this uncanny valley for voice AI.
I mean, should we be thinking like even faster than 300 milliseconds? And is there any efforts that you've seen to bake some of these models down into silicon? We've seen what Etched is doing with putting the transformer architecture on silicon. You could imagine that once Midjourney gets good enough or kind of hits some peak, that they would just bake it down into silicon and we would just have image generation models, ASICs essentially, like what happened with Bitcoin. Is that the future here? Not that you would pivot into hardware, but maybe you would like vend your software into a hardware provider at that level.
So we partner with like folks like Cerebras and
Sure.
Grok. And so we allow you to kind of plug in their models and plug in effectively their hardware accelerated inference. And so we're compatible with that world. I think on the inference side, you can definitely, I think it's going to continue to push as low as it can get. There's obviously some limits. It's a trade-off between kind of capabilities and level of knowledge and how fast you can kind of run that pass through the model to get the result out. So there are trade-offs, of course, that follow the laws of physics, but there's also kind of diminishing returns after a while. To give you an example, I once built this Cerebras demo. I used like a Llama 7B or 8B, Llama 8B. Have to remember these numbers on the parameter counts. But Llama 8B hooked up to Cerebras, and I got a bunch of feedback on that voice demo that the model was responding too fast. And can you slow it down? And it's kind of going off the rails a little bit.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, on that note, is there a kind of like at inference time fine tuning that needs to happen on the voice agent side to give the human listener the appropriate interaction? Like some people want to have, this really fast back and forth conversation. And I'm like, just get to the point. I'm just trying to book a flight. Can I just give me the information as quickly and condensed as possible? Other people might prefer an agent that speaks slower and really draws things out and gives the full context and then lets them answer and kind of ping pong back and forth that way. Is there any movement towards like that level of fine tuning that you think might happen in the future? Is it already happening? I don't know.
Yeah, it's already happening. So I think that there's kind of two different flavors of this, and you can kind of combine them together over time. So the first one is that if you've interacted with like the real-time models, like the ones that are, so there's OpenAI real-time API, there's Gemini multimodal live API. There's a few others coming out as well. And for all of these models that natively understand audio, you can actually tell them to, whisper or slow down or speed up or act hyper. You can kind of give them an explicit signal of the style or the way that you want them to communicate with you. So that's already available and possible with these models. Then there's another part of it, which I think will come in the next year or two, where the model will implicitly be intelligent enough to pick up on what your pacing is or your state of mind is, just based on the way that you're talking and expressing yourself. And also, if we weave computer vision into it, it might see you and understand from visuals, okay, this person is stressed, or this person seems like they're in a hurry, or this person is calm and like relaxed. And you can kind of tell that by your body language and by the way you're speaking, and it can automatically adjust you in the same way a human would be able to.
So you guys work with a lot of the biggest companies in voice already: OpenAI, Speak, Character AI, you're working with Tinder. I see like really broad swath of companies, Spotify, Oracle, things like that. Are you seeing as many startups as you would like sign up and start building in voice AI? It feels like a category that if you go back like 5 years ago, people were really excited about voice, but then you had these sort of like high profile companies that didn't quite work, but maybe in many ways they were just too early. So what are you seeing on the startup side in terms of new companies being formed specifically to leverage voice and LiveKit and the underlying models?
Yeah, we're seeing probably about we're doing like thousands and thousands, several thousands of like signups to the cloud product, our commercial product, and most of those, the vast majority, are startups and growing companies, and out of those, probably around 75% or so, 80% of those signups are voice AI companies that are building voice agents. And so the way that I kind of see the market segmented to a degree is that you have the large AI labs, and they have popular, consumer apps, and a lot of them are building kind of open-ended voice agents that you can talk to about kind of anything, right? They're assistants. They do question answering. They do therapy for mental health, all kinds of language learning in the case of speak. And then on the other side, you have these kind of pockets that are what I call kind of voice native systems. And those are really anything you pick up the telephone to, when you call someone on the other end, call a business, there's someone that answers that line, and they're either, doing patient intake at a hospital, or they're doing loan qualification or insurance eligibility checking. There's a lot of these kind of business process flows where there are pockets that are like really large in nature. So customer support is the one that gets talked about a lot, right? Like some of the markets that Sierra, Decagon, and folks like that are playing in. And so for all of those systems, we're seeing tons of startups flood into those spaces because it is now viable to take an LLM and have like a voice stack, like LiveKit, for example, that's hooked up to that LLM. And you can build like an automated version of whoever is picking up the phone on the other end.
Well, yeah, and
right?
the thing that I'm excited about, everybody's gotten on one of these like robo CX calls, and I've had the experience in the past where I just say talk to a human until I get to a human because I know they're not going to resolve like the issue the way that I want, and I'm like the annoying guy to the robot.
Hammer
But
zero.
I do feel like there's a point here quickly where the AI can be considerably better than the human on the other end because they're not tired, they're not in a bad mood that day, like they're really they just have like high energy because they're code, right?
There's going to be a flippening, and it's going to be like,
flippening
oh,
is
I'm
gonna be
talking to a
awesome.
human. Robot, please put me on there with the
Totally.
robot.
Yes.
Throw me on the robot.
Yeah. I was on a customer support call with Comcast the other day, and I was talking to a human for sure, and they were trying to look up something for me. And then they started asking me if I'd ever seen the snow and if I'd ever spent time in the snow. And I was like, what? And like, where do you live? And I'm like, California. They're like, so do you experience snow in California? I'm like, well, in Tahoe, yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
But it was so weird. And I was just like, am I talking
bizarre.
to an AI right now, or is this a human? And if it's a human, I kind of want the AI instead.
Yeah, it's very bizarre.
Super awkward.
Can you tell me about some of the more like nuts and bolts enterprise customers you're working with? I see this case study from Playback. We actually had the CEO of Playback on the show.
Oh, nice.
Live streaming for sports makes a ton of sense. Do you know exactly how they're leveraging LiveKit and how you can kind of give us a more concrete example of like their infrastructure, basically?
Yeah, for sure. So Playback, they're also going to integrate, AI into that flow as well, like a voice-based commentator or whatever that can watch the game and provide an overlay for fans. But they use us for a pretty different use case. In that case, they have these kind of courtside cameras at like NBA games, MLB games, and all of that. And these cameras are, the way that you watch sports on TV. And so one interesting part about, and this is kind of like a deeper technology thing, but one, if you've ever watched like the Super Bowl or the NBA Finals or any sports game on a TV, and then like you're texting your friends about it and they're watching the game, or there's someone in another part of your house that has the game on a different TV, you'll notice that you're not synchronized. Like you're seeing plays before they are, sometimes up to like 30 seconds or a minute before. And so the technology that we use for live broadcasts of sports games is not true real-time technology. Not everyone is synchronized in the same way that in 1969, when the lunar landing, everybody saw that at the same time because there's a server that is sending all these kind of broadcasts out over TV antennas that are receiving these things, and it is truly a shared experience. And so playback, what they do is they ingest the video feed from these cameras at courtside or at the MLB game, and they're ingesting it using LiveKit. That goes into a single system, and then LiveKit's cloud network, effectively everybody who's watching that NBA game, for example, we are effectively shuttling those bytes from that camera in a synchronized way to every single person that's watching that game. So when like Steph sinks a three, everybody who's watching that game through playback is seeing that three get sunk at the same time, able to truly have a shared experience of watching their favorite team play the game together, cheer together, all of that stuff. And so playback is effectively using us for the backbone of all of the audio and video kind of transmission that is going on within their application.
Makes sense.
Before we let you go, we should probably talk about the news today.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
guys had a bit of an announcement. Why don't you share a little bit there?
Yeah, for sure. So kind of how I mentioned at the start, right? We started as an open source project, connecting humans to other humans. But now we have found ourselves kind of operating at a very large scale, connecting humans to machines. So using voice and computer vision. And so we closed a Series B today. That's led by Altimeter Capital.
Right,
they're
Gerstner, let's do it. Let's go.
Let's go.
That
We
got
love
him
BG.
sweet. Yeah. So we closed that round, and now we're really going after voice AI. We're building like an all-in-one platform for any developer to build a voice agent.
Give us the stats. 1 million, 2 million. How much did you raise?
45 million.
45 million.
I gotta
Let's
do, I
go.
gotta
It's on
do
the
40.
gong.
I gotta do 45 hits.
million,
No, I'm
folks.
not
Let's
gonna
do
submit
it.
us to
Let's
that.
hear
But
it. Congratulations.
amazing milestone.
Thanks.
I think clearly like a
Product market fit.
5-year overnight success.
Yes, classic.
Classic example. But it's cool. I love these stories
Yeah.
where you sort of work on a really hard problem and then discover the
entirely new use
most
case, yeah.
powerful application years later. So congratulations to you and the team. It's great to have you on. You can be our new official voice AI infrastructure correspondent.
Yeah, you love
Sweet.
that line.
I'll make a clone of me, and then
Yes.
that will be your
That's
official
perfect.
voice AI correspondent. Cool, guys.
That's perfect.
That's perfect.
Well, thanks so much for stopping by.
yeah, thanks for coming
we really
on.
appreciate it.
Thank
Have
you,
a
guys.
great one.
Take
Talk
care.
soon.
Talk soon.
Cheers.